And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey folks, I'm Tom Vasel, and welcome to a review of Legend of the Mist, or Legends of the Mist. Woo! Think of a world, maybe Kung Fu Panda type world, and you're going around and you're trying to be a legend, and you're fighting and getting your armies to go around and control different areas and build up. And this is a game in which you are going to be getting custom dice and being able to use those dice and roll them in various ways to get actions, and then use those actions to try to score as many points as you possibly can. That sounds a little more complicated. The game is not that complex. Here it is. In this game, each person is going to pick a legend. There's several legends for each color, so 4 of them. So you can pick one of the 4 different legends here for green, example, one of the 4 different legends for purple, and so on and so forth. When you pick a legend, they're going to have a special ability. They're also going to have starting dice. Now, there's several dice in this game. The dice have different actions. The white dice are kind of basic. They have all the different actions on them. The other dice will focus on something. So you'll see this blue one here has a lot more build marks on it, while the yellow one here has more of these scroll actions on it. So players are going to get these. They're also going to get a bunch of militia in their color that they'll have in front of them. Also, they're going to have their legend, which is going to start on this hex here. This is called the Mist. It's basically just the starting hex in the game, and then the game starts. In each round of the game, players are going to roll all their dice. This shows the different actions that you have available to you at any given point. Once players roll those dice, they're going to take this board here, and they're going to basically put these dice on the board and pick the actions in the order that they want to. If you have more than 3 dice, you'll pick just the actions you want. You're only going to get 3 actions. Each player has a shield that they're going to be doing this behind, and when everyone's ready, you'll reveal them. Then the first person will take their action and go around the table, then the second action and the third action and go around the table. At the end of a round, players will possibly score any mission cards and then go to the next round. There are 6 different actions. One of the actions is basically to build. That's where you're going to draw 3 plots from a pile. You're going to move your character in a straight line up 2 spaces, and you're going to place them on that spot there. When you move to this new spot, you basically have a chance to discover new things and to put, there's a chance to get dice. When you do different actions on some of the plots, different things will happen. Another action you can do is order. That's where you draw 3 objective cards. Objective cards are kind of like goals and things that you want to do each round. So you're going to be able to draw these objective cards and keep one. So maybe I want this one. I need to have 6 dice. There just needs to be 6 dice in play. Or produce 3 times this round. Well, that's pretty cool. Or here, gain a die of a color you did not turn in. So maybe I keep this one. And if I produce 3 times in a round, at the end of the round I'll play this card. It's worth 6 points at the end of the game, and I get to keep all my dice this round. So they give you like a special ability, and they give you points at the end of the game. Another action you have is economy. That's simply where you get a coin. Every 2 coins is worth a point at the end of the game, and coins are also used to complete some of the objective cards. Both the economy and the build action allow you, instead of doing them, to place a worker, one of your little dudes, on one of the tiles that are shown face up here. Now, as players are placing workers on these different tiles, when you place a worker on the tile and the number of your workers equals the number in the corner, you're going to get that improvement tile. Anybody else who's on that tile can move to another one, which might give it to them or what have you. When you get these are also worth points at the end of the game, but they also give you something. For example, this one gives you a red die to your permanent die pool. So you're going to get an extra die for the rest of the game, and whenever you take one of these, a new one comes out. Another action that you can take as you're moving around is production. You can look at a plot that your guy's on, and you can say, all right, and besides, before any of these actions, you can move your person 2 spaces in a straight line. But I can just produce, which means I put 2 dice on this one, a blue and a red. That's what it shows there. Or, as a production action, I can take one of those dice and add it to my pool. There's also a wild action, which lets you do any of the actions that we're talking about. And finally, a conquest action. As the game goes by, some of the actions are going to allow you to put your dudes out on the board because you're going to want to control these spots at the end of the game. Controlling them is going to give you points. But a conquest action allows you to move in and take one of them out. And you put it in front of you as a trophy, which might be needed for some objective cards. Or you can even attack another legend, and if you do so, they just simply lose the next die that they haven't used yet this turn. So that goes off the board. So Conquest is kind of an in-your-face style of action. After a certain, at the end of a turn, players are going to see how many of these different cards that they've completed, the different ones, they can turn those in. Also, players are going to look at the dice that they used. So let's say I am Zimmy Zhao here, or Sima Zhao, and this turn I used a white, a blue, and a red die. So the red die I used, so now it's gone. I can only keep my permanent dice, and I have a white, a blue, and a yellow. So I still have the yellow. I didn't use it this turn. I used a white, a blue, and a red instead, so therefore one of them goes away. So you're never going to run out of dice. You'll always have the dice you started with, and maybe if I had this tile, I would actually have a red die. But as you get more dice from other things, whenever you use them, they're going to go away. The game will continue until someone completes a certain number of these cards, and that depends on how many players. So for example, in a 4-player game, you need to complete 6 of them. At that point, you add up the points for these, for the tiles that you've gotten, for tiles that you control on the board, and for every 2 money you have. And whoever has the most points is the winner of the game. I like the tiles. I like the artwork on the tiles. They show, for example, we have the training ground here and the quarry and the woodland glade. Each of these shows very distinctly what color dice are there. Although I will say you might have some problems if you're colorblind between the green and the red, because color here matters a lot. But other than that, everything looks good, and it's going to look good as the board is slowly built up. These tiles here, these upgrade tiles, I wouldn't have minded had they differentiated them a little. They all look the exact same. They all have this pagoda on them, and they have different abilities. The dice is kind of the crux of the game. They're very good quality dice. It's mostly easy to tell the symbols apart, except maybe the building and production look a little similar, but they have these little 2 extra marks here, so that's an easier way to tell them apart. But they're etched dice, and they work well. They roll well. Then, I mean, come on now. These guys are cute as all get out. And they're little translucent meeples. They might be a little too small, possibly. They're a little hard to pick up sometimes. But other than that, I really like them. The artwork on the cards is okay. This looks, I don't know how to explain. I mean, these are fine, but it really looks like the artist here, it looks like a kid drew these in a sense. And you're like, oh, that's pretty good. They just don't look as good as, I mean, they're not my style, I guess would be the best way to put it. And the shields are really, I mean, they're nice because they explain everything about the game, but they're a little bulky and they fall, I mean, they're a little unwieldy and they fall over pretty easily, to the point where many times in our games we were just hiding our dice that we were putting out with our hand because it was a lot easier than the shield. But overall, pretty neat components. Well, this is a nice breath of fresh air, really, because this game just felt fun, and it felt different maybe than a lot of other games. Now, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of similarities, and one of the problems this game has is it really feels like a Kickstarter project, in that it feels like it's not completely honed and like the components and a little bit, you just a little bit around the edges. It feels almost like, hey, it's a project that some people put together. Now, it's very, very good. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying it doesn't feel as professional, perhaps maybe is the word I'm looking for. But that being said, I really liked it a lot. I really like rolling the dice, and at the beginning you roll 3 actions. Those are the actions you get. You can pick, I mean, it's not as big of a straitjacket as you think, because some of the actions give you 2 different options. When you get an action like putting tiles out, you're drawing 3 dials and picking which one of them to put out. So you have choices within choices, and you also pick the actions that go in. But you want to get more dice as soon as you can, because the more dice you're rolling, the more choices of actions you have. And that's a pretty cool concept in this game that I like a lot. The game reminds me a bit of Takinoko, which is another game with pandas in it. In Takinoko, there are different cards, and you are trying to accomplish these cards by having things in various spots. This has that same thing. I want to go over here. I want to get this. What you do over the course of the game is going to be dictated by completing your objective cards. Yes, you want to have area control on the board. Yes, you want to get these upgrade tiles, which give you extra dice, which is super cool. But it's mostly about completing those objective cards. And it also kind of revolves around what's your special ability. One person doesn't have to move in a straight line. One person, they get bonuses when they attack. Sidebar here, attacking in this game. It's pretty mean. Now, in one instance, it's not like soul crushing. I mean, if I go and I kill some of your people, I take away from your area control, and I can only do one at a time with my attacks, that's not too bad, right? And I mean, even if everyone ganged up on one person, and which there's no real reason to. Most of the time, you're just getting rid of people to make that person lose area control. Maybe you want it, or because you need to get a certain number of people destroyed to get to a certain objective card. Taking someone's die away, though, whoo, that's mean. But again, when you do that, you're not really benefiting yourself at all. However, if you play a character that has a red die, which has more of a combat on, and you roll several combats, you really don't have a lot of options. And I kind of wish that the combat die gave a non-combat option, because sometimes you're like, well, I roll a combat, I guess I'm going to attack you. Sorry, doesn't really benefit me, but at the same time, you know, I'm going to use the die, you know, and because of that, that's a little bit of a knock against the game. I almost wish that the combat die said, or put a worker on one of the tiles or something like that. That's minor, though. The rest of this I really enjoyed. I think there's a lot of variety in the game. The tiles and upgrade tiles are going to come out differently each time. There's 4 different powers for each color, giving you a lot of different options. You're going to think everyone else's power is cooler than yours, and they probably think the same about you. It is neat components. It's very colorful, brings a nice splash to the table. So overall, I enjoyed this one a lot, and that's Legends of the Mist. Dice Tower Judgment approved.